One of the biggest comic book companies of the 1940s was Quality Comics. Everett Busy Arnold was the vice president of a publishing company that printed color Sunday comic sections for a number of different newspapers. In the late 1930s, Arnold saw the potential that comic books had to offer. Taking on the Cowles brothers as partners, he formed Comic Magazines Incorporated. The imprint for this company would be called Quality Comics. In the summer of 1939, their first comic hit the newsstands. Arnold hired the studio of Eisner and Iger, as well as a cadre of very talented in-house talent, to take on the artistic requirements of the line. Quality Comics turned into a very large line with a number of distinct and interesting characters. Some were very traditional, such as the Black Condor and Hercules, while others were a little more offbeat, such as the Human Bomb and the first transgender hero, Madame Fatal. So now, let's take a quick look at 10 of some of the more popular characters to come out of the Quality Comics lineup. Number 10. Kid Eternity was the creation of Otto Binder and Sheldon Moldoff. The Kid made his first appearance in Hit Comics in 1942. The origin of the Kid is inspired by the movie Here Comes Mr. Jordan. In this story, a little boy is killed during a U-boat attack. He goes to heaven, but discovers that he was not supposed to die. And now, with a spiritual guardian, Mr. Keeper, the Kid's spirit is sent back to Earth to do good and help people until his proper death date. The Kid has no memory of who he was before the U-boat attack, except that his grandpa called him Kid. Number 9. Predating the creation of Quality Comics, The Clock made his debut in 2 separate titles in November of 1936. The creation of cartoonist George Brenner, The Clock was based on various pulp heroes from the time period. Brian O'Brien is a wealthy socialite who dons a mask and fights crime. When Quality Comics was formed, it was Brenner who was made the executive editor. That's how The Clock fell into the Quality lineup. Quality Comics was up and running for over a year before The Clock was placed as the headliner in Crack Comics. Number 8. Before DC had the Atom and Marvel had Ant-Man, Quality Comics had their own Mini-Man. Daryl Dane uses a formula to shrink himself down to the size of 6 inches. Doll Man is the creation of Will Eisner, but this series is mostly identified with artists Lou Fine and Reed Crandall. Under the house name of William Irwin Maxwell, both Fine and Crandall would make up the bulk of the Doll Man stories, which first appeared in feature comics starting in 1939. After Arnold moved the operations of Quality Comics to Stamford, Connecticut, he discovered that artist Lou Fine could not make the daily trip from New York City. Fine was partially crippled and the train ride to and from Connecticut was too much for him. After becoming aware of this situation, Arnold rented a studio for Fine and other New York City artists to work from. Number 7. Following the popularity of Milton Caniff's Miss Lace, artist Bill Ward created Torchy to be syndicated in various U.S. Army camp newspapers. During World War II, there was a high demand for sexy female characters in military newspapers. Characters like Miss Lace and Torchy became the inspiration for numerous tank and airplane nose art. Torchy is the lovable, innocent, good-natured knockout who has humorous misadventures and encounters with lustful men. Quality Comics brought Torchy into their universe in 1946. Her series lasted until 1950. Number 6. Another Will Eisner creation, Uncle Sam was the lead feature in National Comics. He is a mystical being who is the spirit of a slain American Revolutionary War soldier. He has the powers of super strength and super speed, and he also possesses a minor level of clairvoyance, and usually a young boy named Buddy Smith joins him in his adventures. Uncle Sam's stories ran from 1940 to 1944. He disappeared as the popularity in patriotic heroes waned. Number 5. Of the entire quality line, this is one of my favorites. Lady Luck. She's the creation of Will Eisner and Chuck Mazzogian. Lady Luck made her debut in the pages of the Spirit Sunday comic supplement in 1940. Lady Luck, in reality, is heiress Brenda Banks. Her stories usually center around the humorous misadventures of her friend, Count Raoul de Change. Count de Change is a penniless aristocrat who is always looking for some get-rich-quick opportunity. Brenda, as Lady Luck, comes in the nick of time to rescue her hapless friend. As both Brenda and Lady Luck, she has to fight off the romantic advances of male admirers. Lady Luck lay dormant for a long time until DC Comics brought her back in 2013 in a Phantom Stranger story written by current editor-in-chief Dan Didio.
Number 4.
One of the sexiest ladies ever to step through the pages of a comic book. The Phantom Lady made her debut in Police Comics #1. She was the creation of Will Eisner and Arthur Petty. Based out of Washington, D.C., Sandra Knight is the debutante daughter of a U.S. Senator. As the Phantom Lady, she fights crime using martial arts skills and blinds her enemies with her black light projector. A number of artists drew her during her original Quality Comics run, one of which was a 15-year-old named Joe Kubert. She was later published by Fox Features and Ajax Comics and became the center of attention during the comic book censorship push of the 1950s.
Number 3.
A masterpiece of comic book storytelling was The Spirit by Will Eisner. Eisner told incredible stories using a lot of cinematic visual techniques. Taking place in Central City, police officer Denny Colt is presumed dead. He wakes up in a cemetery and takes on the identity of the Spirit to fight criminals who terrorize good, honest, hardworking people of the city. The Spirit first appeared as a Sunday color supplement for 20 newspapers in 1940. These supplements started as a separate business venture from Quality Comics, but after its success, it was brought into the fold. The Spirit alternated as the cover lead on Police Comics, as well as having his own title. Some of Eisner's assistants in this series include Wally Wood, Jack Cole, and Jules Pfeiffer. And another point of note is that a young teenage Joe Kubert did the inks for this series. There is a major controversy over these original Spirit stories due to the portrayal of the Spirit's junior sidekick, a young African American named Ebony White. He is portrayed as an unflattering stereotype that would make most of us in the 21st century cringe. Even with this controversy, comic historians agree that The Spirit is one of the most amazing series to come out of the Golden Age. Will Eisner was an incredible storyteller, and his characters, even Ebony White, are really well developed. That's why the premier award of achievement in the comic book industry is called the Eisner Award.
Number 2.
Of all the traditional superheroes in the Quality Comics stable, none were more popular than this guy. Plastic Man came out of the amazing mind of Jack Cole. He made his debut in 1941 in the very first issue of Police Comics. Plaz quickly took over as the main lead and launched off into his own title. Criminal Patrick Eel O'Brien falls into a vat of acid after being wounded by the police. He is rescued by a kindly monk who nurses him back to health. O'Brien discovers that the acid has given him stretchy superpowers, and with a new lease on life, he decides to use these stretchy superpowers for good. Plastic Man's run would start in 1941 and would last until Quality closed up shop in 1956. DC Comics would revive him and launch a new series in 1966. And in 1979, he hit Saturday morning television with the Plastic Man Comedy Adventure Show.
He can stretch. He can fly. He can bounce. He can change his shape. And he can even dance.
Number 1.
One of the biggest selling characters of the 1940s was Blackhawk. This military hero commanded an air squadron of international pilots. With the battle cry of "Haka!" They would fight the Axis powers from their secret airbase. To give you an idea just how popular this character was, only Superman and the original Captain Marvel outsold him. This character was so popular, he had his own radio show and movie serial. The creation of this character is generally given to Will Eisner, but there is some controversy over this. Chuck Cadre later laid claim to the creation of Blackhawk. He was the primary artist-writer, especially during the early years of the series. This became quite the argument among Golden Age fans until Will Eisner spoke up at a Comic-Con panel discussion. It's not important who created it. The fact that Chuck Cadre made Blackhawk what it was is the important thing, and therefore he should get the credit. Publisher Everett Arnold bought out his partners, the Cowles brothers, in 1950 for roughly about $140,000. Their original investment in 1938 was only $1,000, and for laughs, they added up the amount of money they made over their 11-year partnership and discovered that the Cowles brothers had pulled down something in the neighborhood of $1.4 million. And that's not a bad return for their $1,000 investment. Quality Comics was one of the leading publishers of the 1940s. Up until the end of World War II, their sales were only eclipsed by DC Comics. The Quality line ceased operation in 1956, and at that time, Arnold sold his characters lock, stock, and barrel to DC Comics. DC kept only a few of their best-selling titles running. Years later, as superheroes fell back into vogue, DC brought back the Quality heroes and discovered that there was still an interest in these characters. Now, most of these characters have been fully integrated and have become part of the DC universe. So, who is your favorite Quality Comics character? Did I forget to mention your favorite? Oops! Let me know in the comments section down below. Please hit that like button, and thank you for watching.